Is Bitcoin and crypto dead? No, but my channel sure is. In all seriousness, today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the more scary trends that we're starting to see within the cryptocurrency space when it comes to trading, when it comes to the overall usage of the networks, when it comes to the coverage of cryptocurrencies in the media, and when it comes to interaction and overall interest, not only in social media, but also in more traditional media. So I really just wanted to talk about the decline in interest overall when it comes to cryptocurrencies and some of the metrics that are surrounding that. Starting off with 24-hour trading volume, because that's probably the one that most people are concerned with, which is if you look at the trading volume here for Bitcoin, you can see that it has not been at this low level since all the way back at the beginning of December or the end of November last year. Now, of course, it is worth noting that it is higher than it was at any other point throughout 2017, so it's not like it's declined that much. But it is the first time that we've really started to see volume decrease in quite some time in a substantial way. Because, I mean, you can see here, $20 billion traded in a single day, and now we're all the way down to $6 billion. So there has been a fairly substantial decrease in activity on exchanges, which is something that a lot of people have been talking about. But it's not just limited to trading. We're also starting to see this when it comes to the overall adoption of these networks. So this is the number of daily confirmed transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain provided by blockchain.info. And this is on a 7-day rolling basis. And you can see the massive decline that we've seen in transaction volume. And we haven't seen transaction volume this low since all the way back at the beginning of 2016. Now, it is worth noting that this isn't the full picture. We are starting to see more batching being adopted, and as a result of that, there are more outputs per transaction, which means on a practical level, we are seeing a little bit more trading being done than what this might imply. However, this is still fairly concerning. The increase in the outputs per transaction does not offset this massive decline that we've seen here. And one of the ways that you can kind of measure that is by looking at network value to transaction ratio. And you can see here that really we've been starting to see an increase in this since the beginning of the year. And this is one of the narratives for why potentially we might be going into a recession, because the best way I can define what the network value to transaction ratio is, think of it like a PE ratio for cryptocurrencies, for those of you that are familiar with stocks. And for those of you that aren't familiar with stocks, just think of it as how much market value are we assigning to the transaction volume that has taken place on the Bitcoin blockchain. And what we're seeing here is that there is more value being assigned for less value that's actually being transacted on the network. In other words, more value is being assigned to it per unit of adoption. In this case, that unit of adoption is US dollar volume transmitted through the blockchain, not off-chain. That's important to make that distinction because obviously some of the biggest trading is done off-chain. Like, for example, all of the exchanges that we see, that's all done off-chain. So what we're seeing overall here is a decrease in exchange volume, a decrease in transaction volume, and an increase in the value assumed or assigned to the network relative to the number of transactions or the value of the transactions that take place on the network. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind. This is not a good sign. This is one of the arguments for why we might be headed into a crypto recession. And it also is furthered by the fact that there is a decrease in interest when it comes to cryptocurrencies almost across the board. So if we look at, for example, Coindesk, they've sort of reached a top when it comes to their Alexa ranking, and they're starting to see a slight decline. You can see kind of this how this has topped. This is the same thing that we're seeing with Cointelegraph now. You can also see that topping here. And it's not just the case where we're looking at Alexa, because I know some people are going to point out that Alexa is not always the most accurate. But if we actually pull over to Cointelegraph's website here, you can see that the number of views that they've gotten on their most popular articles, which are the ones where they go into price analysis, you can see here that they're getting views within the hundreds of thousands. But if you pull all the way down back into January and December, you can see that they were getting 200,000, 350,000, 250,000, roughly in that 200 to 400,000 view range, right? All the way back into December, you can see that consistently they would get at least 200,000 views. But if we pull up and go into February, you can see how those views started to decline, and we haven't reached views above 200,000 for any of these price analysis articles since all the way back in January. So there has been an overall decrease in viewership when it comes to the more traditional media sites that cover cryptocurrencies. We're also seeing a decline in interest when it comes to on the Reddits. So this is a measure of the subscribers to the Bitcoin Reddit as well as to the cryptocurrency Reddit. And you can see in both cases, we are seeing the growth rate decline relatively substantially, where now we're only getting roughly 1,000 new members or new subscribers on the Bitcoin Reddit. Hasn't been that low since all the way back in July/August. And then in the cryptocurrency Reddit, funny enough, these growth numbers in the subscribers actually corresponds to the Bitcoin and altcoin cycles. Just thought that was kind of interesting. But you can also see here that the growth rate hasn't been this low since all the way back in roughly when the altcoins started getting a little interesting back in November, right? So this is something that really we haven't seen a decline of this nature in quite some time. This is a fairly substantial decline in overall social media interest, and it doesn't just end here with Reddit. It also is true on YouTube as well. Of course, I've noticed this myself. If you look at my growth relative to other channels' growth, you can see that the number of subscribers that most channels have been gaining across the board has been declining. So this is Box Mining. You can also see it with Data Dash. Again, also somebody that stopped posting for a while, but you can even see that since he's returned, he's still getting less subscribers than when he wasn't posting at all, which that really should show you how much interest has declined. You can also see it here when it comes to Crypto Bobby's channel. You can also see it with Doug Polk. And this is the case with a lot of different channels. There are some exceptions that are still growing relatively quickly, even compared to their past. But in general, here across the board, we are seeing a decline in interest across all social media platforms, not just YouTube. We're seeing it on Twitter. We're seeing it on Reddit. We are seeing it, I believe, probably on Telegram as well, although I don't follow that as closely. And then we're also seeing a decline in general media when it comes to Coindesk, CCN, Cointelegraph, Bitcoin Magazine, so on and so forth. So this is something I really wanted to talk about here because this is something that a narrative that's been kind of discussed in the media, but not too much. We've mostly been talking about declining volume in the exchange volume and also declining volume in the transaction volume. But most people haven't been talking about the decrease in overall interest across every single social media platform. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I mean, we are starting to see probably a little bit of a lull in the market. I have a feeling a lot of it has to do with price action. We're not trading near an all-time high anymore. And as a result of that, people are less interested in the market. We are still seeing transaction volume on exchanges fairly substantial relative to what we saw in 2017. So again, it's not like the market has died as a whole, but I think that people are less interested now just because of the fact that we aren't trading at $20,000 for Bitcoin. And for the overall market, we haven't seen the market cap, all the way up at $800 billion for quite some time. In fact, if I go ahead and click on this market cap here, I believe we've been trading at, roughly $450 billion to $500 billion in market cap for the better part of a month. And when you trade sideways in a market that just went parabolic, I think that kind of loses the interest of a lot of people. So we've been trading between roughly $400 and $500 billion for the total market cap for the better part of a month, right? So this sideways trading action to a lot of people, I think, is decreasing interest overall. I think this is evidence that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I don't think the excitement is there for the technology. I think this is evidence of that because as soon as the market starts to go sideways, we see a decline in interest when it comes to using these blockchain networks. That might not be the case for all of them. Of course, we are seeing an increase in transactions in a number of other blockchains, but when it comes to the US dollar volume, a lot of that is being dominated by this exchange volume. And the interest in media is completely dependent on price. So when people tell you that, they're in it for the technology, I think they have biased blind spots, and I think that they don't realize that most of us are really here just to make money, and we're not interested so much in the technology. Now, I'm not saying that that's how everybody feels. I'm not saying that's how you feel or how I feel or anybody else, but it's kind of how most people are here. That's why most people are interested, because of the opportunity for making money. That's certainly why I spend as much time as I do on this, because realistically here, what value am I contributing to the blockchain space when it comes to the tech side of things? And the answer is very little, right? I do have my opinions on things. I am involved, but I'm certainly not developing. I'm certainly not writing code. And that's the case for the majority of people. The majority of people are just trying to trade in this space, take advantage of it, and sometimes push their political agendas when it comes to, libertarians versus whatever other type of political agenda supports fiat currencies. So that's something I just wanted to note here towards the end, is that we are kind of seeing evidence, in my opinion, that most people are interested in price. They're not really interested in the tech. That's sort of secondary when it comes to their overall focus. So anyway, just curious about what your thoughts are on this particular market. As usual, if you would like to interact with me and if you like this video, make sure that you check out my Steemit. I tend to interact a little bit more frequently on there, just because the number of comments is a little bit more manageable, and also the quality of the comments tends to be a little bit better. So make sure you check that out if you're interested in it. Otherwise, as usual, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.